Welcome to ASEAN BIZ, your only choice for business updates covering ASEAN countries. I'm your host Andrew Chia, and together with me,
Eric Chong,
and we'll bring you business news on everything that happens around the world that affects ASEAN countries.
In this brand new editions, we bring you 4 segments: the current business updates, our durian main story, funny business moment, and health is wealth.
Let's start with our current business update. Our hot topic today is falling oil prices.
Well, oil prices have been falling from $60 to $50 in early July.
Right.
And
it's quite drastic comparing, considering last time, just a couple of years ago,
it was comes to about 110.
The highest was almost 150.
Yes, and that time everybody was screaming.
Before subprime crisis.
And in fact, in Malaysia, the price of petrol actually shot up so high that you can see a drastic drop in car traffic.
Yeah.
Overnight.
So, and it was at the $100 level for quite a long time, years, you know.
Yes.
And suddenly it started dropping.
And recently, I think on the second quarter of 2015, the price of crude oil actually hovers around 60.
Yeah, around 60. And then
around 60 and went down. Then at one time, it actually went below 50.
Right, 40 plus.
40 plus. And recently in July, it's hovering about 50, 51, this area. So what's the reason for all this price drop?
I think definitely one of the reasons is oversupply, right?
Yes. And there's one particular incident that the oil cartel actually says that they want to push it down to $40.
That was to compete with the shale oil.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
I think right now they are still doing that, trying to depress the prices. And at the same time, it actually happens that we have an oversupply situation, probably due to certain countries' economies not doing so well.
Well, one thing is the economy are not doing so well, and also second thing is the realization of using fossil fuels. And a lot of countries are actually adopting solar, wind, and even so-called water energy.
Yeah, Eric, do you think the recent stock market crash has something to do with it?
I would say indirectly there's an effect on that one. Because when the stock market crash, people will spend less and buy less and travel less. So when they travel less, the consumption of petrol actually drops, the demand of petrol actually drops.
So over the couple of months, particularly in July, oil prices actually fell and is currently around 50 plus. So what is all this going to affect ASEAN countries?
Well, for Malaysia, government income from oil will be reduced.
Yeah, Malaysia is an oil-producing country.
Yes, and quite a strong percentage of our Malaysia incomes are dependent on the oil.
Yeah, the last time I looked, is something like 100 billion Malaysian dollars income comes from crude oil.
Crude oil, yes.
About half of our income.
Yes,
total
and
income.
Secondly is the LPG.
Yeah.
Right.
So besides Malaysia, which other countries in ASEAN have oil? I believe Indonesia?
Indonesia.
Is Indonesia's oil enough for their country's consumption?
I would say to a certain extent it's actually not enough.
Yeah, they still have to buy some, right?
They still have to buy some.
Thailand and Singapore, I believe, don't have any oil.
Not much oil. So Philippines, quite a number. A lot of offshore.
Right.
So I would say in ASEAN there's just a few countries actually produce oil.
Countries like Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, I believe are not so lucky. They don't have much oil.
Cambodia a little bit, not so much.
So which means if the international oil price goes down, these countries who do not produce oil but use up a lot of oil,
they will be benefited.
Right, yeah.
Because they will have a buy at a lower price. Right.
So in order to counter and offset their advantage, I believe some people will try to squeeze their currency.
yes. So if they have still enjoy a strong currency,
then
they can buy a better at a better price.
Right. Unfortunately, if the oil price goes down, so does their currency.
Yes, and unfortunately also, we have seen US dollars been strengthening throughout this 1-2 months. And a lot of countries actually affected by the strengthening of US dollars. And since all commodities are priced at US dollars,
right,
whether
including
you are
gold and crude oil,
whether you are producing country or non-producing countries, you still have to buy the stuff at US dollars. So if your country currency are not strong, well, you still have to pay a high price. Which what happens to Malaysia? Despite the oil price have been dropping, we still have to pay high petrol prices.
Yeah, because Malaysia ringgit is also dropping against the US dollar.
Against the US dollars. So, I mean, theoretically, the petrol prices for citizens will be reduced. But it will counter back because of the weakening of the local currencies.
So, do you predict in the month of August or September coming up soon that the petrol price in Malaysia will be more expensive or cheaper? I think it's going to be slightly cheaper, right?
Slightly cheaper by about 5 cents, right? Not that drastic because actually you look at it, we actually lost our purchasing power by at least about 26%. As today, as compared to a few months back, right? We lost about 26% of our purchasing power, which I would say that it really will not help much for the price reduction in petrol. So,
Eric, when we talk about ASEAN countries, what do you think will happen to oil prices in the second half of 2015, say all the way to the end of 2015?
If it's continued to drop due to oversupply,
we are going to make a prediction.
Yes.
I believe it's going to drop further. What do you think, Eric?
I would say it will drop further. Right,
probably to the level of $40. Is that possible?
Well, it can be a very good sign for consumers.
Yeah.
But it will not be a very good sign for oil-producing countries, like the oil company. So they actually can see their so-called income drop by quite substantial. And in fact, yesterday I read an article about this tycoon who produced a lot of raw materials from Australia. His wealth actually dropped by about 70% because of the loss in demand of the raw materials that he produces.
That's very drastic.
Yes, and looking at the whole situation, if now it's $50 and by next month it's $40, we're talking about 20% reductions.
Very drastic.
It's very drastic, and a lot of oil companies actually have very huge investment into their oil explorations. And this actually will hinder their income. And well, market forces, they can't do much.
Good for somebody,
bad for somebody. They cannot keep on producing, neither can they stop producing.
So I believe generally for ASEAN countries, cheaper oil is
an expected.
Yeah, because most countries in ASEAN do not produce oil, unlike Middle East.
Right. Yeah. So the country that hurts will be Middle East.
And probably Malaysia.
And probably Malaysia and Indonesia. And by losing income, which means that the weakening of the Malaysia ringgit, the local currency,
will continue. That is a separate topic, but it's very interesting.
Yes.
If it keeps weakening,
we can see our purchasing power dropping.
Yeah, it's going to be bad or good?
Well, I would say
more bad than good, right?
It's more bad than good because if you look at our balance of trade, are we in a deficit or are we in a surplus?
I believe you usually export more than we import.
But recently, I think we import more than export.
Due to our currency. Because we are paying much more for
importing. And we are selling less because our country actually producing less products.
And by right, our products can actually cheaper and we can sell more, right?
Well,
but unfortunately, that's not the case.
That's not the case because we can see a lot of local manufacturers shift their production to other countries, which means that they will export directly from their producing country and not coming back to Malaysia.
Wow.
So in a way, I would say that Malaysia does not export too much of products already. And this will actually affect our balance of trades.
Okay.
Right.
So Malaysia doesn't seem to be benefiting very much from this cheap oil situation. But the good news is ASEAN generally should be happier with lower oil prices.
Lower oil prices. But, there's plus sign and there's minus sign. Okay. We will take a short break now. And we will be back with our main story for today. Stay tuned, guys, and don't go away.
Right, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to ASEAN BIZ, and our Durian main story today is Bitcoin. Interesting, right?
Yes.
But before we bring you our main story, my co-host Eric is going to share with you his funny business moment. And the title of his story today is Fundraising.
Okay, the situation is such. A lot of times, a lot of people will receive a lot of phone calls asking for funds raising, and this particular local community office, realized that the organization has never received a donation from the town's most successful lawyer.
Must be a rich man.
Why jokes always started with lawyers?
Hey, very naughty are you.
Okay, the person in charge of the contributions called him to persuade him to contribute. So he started the line like this. Our research shows that out of the yearly income of less than 500,000, you did not give a penny to charity. Wouldn't you like to give back some to the community in some way? The lawyer hold on for a moment over and replied, first, did your research also show that my mother is dying after a long illness and has medical bills that are several times her annual income? Embarrassed, the rep murmured, oh no, I didn't know about it. Then the lawyer interrupted. Or that my brother, a disabled veteran, is blind and confined to a wheelchair? Okay, the rep stammered and out of apology was interrupted again. Or that my sister's husband died in a traffic accident, the lawyer voice raising in indignations, leaving her penniless with 3 children. The humiliated reps, completely beaten, simply said, I had no idea. On a roll, the lawyer cut him off once again. So, if I don't give any money to them, why should I give any to you?
Very bad lawyer.
Okay, right? So, that's from me on funny business moment.
Right, thank you, Eric. That funny business moment was actually very funny.
Very funny.
Okay. Welcome back to the show, guys. You're listening to ASEAN BIZ, your only choice for business updates covering ASEAN countries. I'm your host, Andrew Chia, and together with me is Eric Chong just now. And we bring you business news on everything that happens around the world that involves ASEAN countries. The title of our main story today is Bitcoin. I'm sure everybody has heard of Bitcoin by now.
Yes. And quite a number of tycoons also invested in it.
Right. We know that it's some kind of virtual currency and that many people have made lots of money investing in Bitcoin. For most people, that is about all they know. If someone were to invite them to invest in Bitcoin, they would need to know a little bit more about that, right?
Yes. And today we are going to take a closer look at Bitcoin for you. And we bring you the relevant information on whether you should or should not invest in Bitcoin.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Now, what is Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is a virtual currency. It is perhaps about also the world's first cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is Bitcoin based on?
Bitcoin is based on the theory of popularity. Strange, isn't it?
Yes.
Once upon a time, money or currency is printed as a value of the amount of gold held by a country in its physical gold reserves. In 1971, President Nixon from America abolished this and printed the US dollar based only on trust.
As time went by, today, the US is loaded with debts up to more than its GDP value. Some economists argue that it is only a matter of time before this so-called fiat currency becomes zero in value. Some argue that we should go back to the gold standard like before. A head of cattle could be bought with a piece of gold 1,000 years ago. Today, that same piece of gold can still buy that head of cattle. Economic development can be achieved without inflation by using gold.
Isn't that fantastic, Eric?
Yes.
That same piece of gold today is still worth that much.
Which means our current gold price is inflated gold price.
Which means today your RM100
is still worth the same.
It doesn't take 1,000 years. Let's say 10 years from now. How much do you expect your 100 RM to be worth?
Well, I would say about 5 ringgit.
That really gives me a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Okay, many argue that there is no way we can go back to the gold standard. Now, Bitcoin saw the opportunity to create yet another currency that can have value based on trust and popularity. Just like the US currency, Bitcoin's shiny gold logo gives the impression that it functions like the gold standard. But in actual fact, it has nothing much to do with gold. The only similarity is that it has the scarcity characteristic of gold. Only a maximum of about 21 million bitcoins can ever be created or produced. There is no physical gold or even paper money.
So this guy is much more smarter.
Brilliant.
Genius. He just created one thing, duplicate it 21 million times, and you guys rush for it.
Yeah. 7 billion population trying to buy 21 million pieces of gold.
So the scarcity.
That's a good idea.
The ratio of scarcity is very high. Okay. So everybody start to...
Who was this smart guy who actually invented it?
Well, Bitcoin was invented by someone or a few people who call themselves Satoshi Nakamoto.
Satoshi Nakamoto, very famous by now.
Yes. Till today, no one knows exactly who this person or people are. Right.
Right.
So something mysterious. So you can just see the psychology of people. Just to make a few extra money, they will just dump their savings, dump their money into things, into the unknown.
But you see, Eric, the idea is there. The whole problem, I believe,
is people bought the idea.
Yeah, I think it's not unfair to say that it's because the US currency is being printed by all these QE1, QE2, and QE, so many. So much so that people know that money can just be printed. So they get the idea that if it can be printed, it can be printed indefinitely. And why people still put a value on that piece of paper that is printed is because everybody is using it.
As a trust.
There's some kind of trust.
A promissory notes.
It's called a reserve currency. It's backed by bonds. All the bonds all over the world use this currency as their denomination.
So is this a norm, no?
Right, yeah. So there's value based on that popularity alone. That's why Bitcoin saw that, wow, we can also create something that can be based on popularity, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. And people will just go for it without giving it a second thought.
Sure enough, it went like that. So this guy who created it, put it in the market for only, say, about 1 cent US.
Yes.
And as time went by, the guy who bought a lot of these coins at 1 cent, it became $1 US dollar within a short span of 1 year.
And
can you imagine that?
Millions of it.
Right. It's 100 times, which is 10,000% return,
And I believe now it's traded openly in the NYSE.
Yes, it's been traded openly for a long time.
It's even have a counter code for it.
Right. Okay. So, people can do things like that.
And
it's really amazing.
Bitcoin doesn't actually have any business model.
It's a currency.
No products to sell.
They don't need a product.
No products to sell. It just sell the currency based on demand and supply.
If you can have confidence in the USD, why don't you have confidence in us?
Yes. Right? And sounds funny, but actually a lot of tycoons, even rich men, super rich men, actually dumps their money into it.
Yeah. So if you tell a guy don't invest in Bitcoin, he will turn around and tell you, hey, look, that guy who bought Bitcoin at 1 cent today, if it's $1, he has already made 100 times. And you are telling me that you cannot invest in something that can appreciate 100 times in value over just 1 year? You must be crazy.
And there are cases where subsequently after the Bitcoin was launched, there are a few more others playing on the same similar model.
Right. In Malaysia, we have something called the U Fund, which is based on basically the same idea.
Same idea. And recently it was busted. And it was closed down.
So it went back to zero.
Back to zero, and I have quite a number of friends also got caught in it. And also lost quite a lot of money.
You mean they lost their pants?
Not that much. But the earlier people actually make some money. I've seen them make some money. But it won't be long. It's still the same scam.
Great.
Right.
I think we need to take a short break and come back with the story.
And stay tuned, guys. Don't go away.
Welcome back. You are listening to ASEAN BIZ, and our Durian main story today is Bitcoin. We have mentioned something about the introduction of what Bitcoin is all about. And before we continue with the story about Bitcoin, Eric would like you to give you his health is wealth health tip today. And the title of his story today is, let me see, time or money?
Okay. We've been talking about health, and we've been talking about wealth, and we're talking about money, but so far we have not touched about time. Right? So, time or money, why you need both to be healthy? Eating well, being active, and maintaining relationships, most of us know what we need to do to be healthy. We just don't have the time to do it. Time poor? Of course you are. Who isn't these days? We are all desperately trying to cram 2 days worth of activities into one, and it seems like everything have to be happened yesterday. Deadlines scream at you, while yet another crumble note from your child's school gently nudges you to volunteer your time for something. Your dogs give you that look, then stand pointedly next to its long neglected leash. You know you should catch that spin class and cook a healthy meal afterwards. But by the time your work day ends, all you can manage is grab some takeaway and slump guiltily on the game set. Sounds familiar?
Bad.
Yeah.
Sad, right?
Yeah, it's sad. Maybe not the exact detail, but there's no doubt that time is one commodity in short supply in the modern world. Unfortunately, being time poor doesn't just mean we are not getting things done. It's also making us sick. According to associations, Professor Lyndon, Senior Fellows of the National Centre for Epidemiology in National University of Australia. Okay, pretty much every single study that has gone out and asked people, why don't you eat healthy? Why don't you do more exercise? Because most people these days do know that they should. The most common reason given will be lack of time.
Yeah, not enough time to do anything.
Yes. In fact, I come across a lot of my friends.
It's very real.
I give advising them, okay, let's do some exercise, give yourself some time, have a relaxed moment. I don't have time, so much things to do. You know? So it's actually a health trade-off. We know that poverty is linked with poor health via a range of mechanisms. Okay, but the significant determinant of health is a trade away for income. Most of us will trade time for income. That's the problem. Okay, if you have a high income, you are often healthy to start with, or you wouldn't be able to do that job. But you are probably also not doing the physical activities if you are working long hours and the other things you need to do. We know that chronic diseases takes time to build up. It's those little changes in your lifestyle that will have big impact on your health later. Those who are worse off are those aren't earning a high income to at least enable them to afford healthy food or get help around the house to get things done. It's these people who are working the long hours needed to support themselves and their families, and who may also be caring for others at the same time. They won't have the high incomes, but they will have very high time loads. And there's a lot of research showing that they just don't do things like exercise or eat healthy food, not regularly.
Definitely
because
not enough time.
They don't have enough time, and it's a time conflict.
It's quite sad, but it's
quite
a
sad.
real problem in today's society.
In this society, because everybody needs to have houses, cars, and in today's world, in our days we just have one car. Now in one family probably you have 3, 4 cars.
So it's like those days the parents just take care of the kid or kids.
Yes.
But today we have to take care of kids plus houses and cars
and the household chores,
gadgets and a lot of things.
Yeah.
So that's why we don't have enough time.
Yes, and we spend a lot of time looking at the smartphone, communicating with virtual friends.
That we have time.
Yeah, that we have time. And
Facebooking we have time.
Yeah, and they found that people who spend more than 80 hours a week on care and work felt that they are poorer mental health and took part in less physical activities. But they also found the same for people who have higher score for rushing. Interestingly, they found rushing was linked to being female, being a single parent, having a disability, a sense of lack of control, and work-family conflicts. Well, rushing, which means that they keep on rushing for time to take care of the family.
They have more commitments, more chores to do.
So they trade it off with their health. But there isn't strong evidence of a direct link between feeling time pressure and experiencing heart disease or stroke. Some studies suggest that people who felt short of time report sleep problems, headaches, and gut issues and poorer health overall. So guys, which means that we are trading our
time for money
instead of health and time.
Or rather, a lot of people are selling their time
for money, and money used to pay for their medical bills.
Sounds like quite sad.
It's a sad cycle.
What do you advise our listeners, Eric?
Well, I would say that let's keep our life simple and put it on moderations.
Okay. And no matter what we do, try to squeeze some time from the busy schedule.
At least squeeze about 30 minutes of your time to do some exercises.
You mean every day?
Yes, why not? You have to do it every day. And
some of us can't squeeze even 5 minutes from our busy schedule.
Yeah, that is just an excuses.
Yeah, but we have half an hour for Facebook.
Yes, sometimes they have more than that. I've seen friends actually spend 3-4 hours on Facebook. So
guys, what Eric is basically saying that it's a matter of priority, isn't it?
Set some priorities, lower down your craving for material things.
Yeah, so basically you don't believe in the excuse that people don't have time.
Yes, because it's fair. Everybody have 24 hours.
Yes.
And for myself, I can actually spend about 3 hours a day on workout and running and exercising.
Yeah, I believe the proof that Eric is right is how much time you spend on Facebook.
I spend about less than half an hour a day.
Right. If you spend a lot of time on Facebook, you cannot come and tell Eric, I have no time for exercise. Yes, is that right?
You just need to wake up half an hour earlier, and that's it. You have your time already.
Okay, thank you, Eric, for a wonderful health tip, which our friends will all agree that we should start spending more time to take care of our health.
Yes, and we come back to our story on Bitcoins.
Right. What is Bitcoin all about, and should we invest in Bitcoin? Yes, the story continues. Bitcoin price rose from almost zero when it started, sometime near 2008,
yes,
to $100 in 2013. Wow, Eric. Wow. Can you imagine you buy something at 1 cent and it becomes $100? How
100
many
times?
Not 100 times. 10,000 times.
times, yes.
10,000 times is 1,000,000%.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So.
And you're telling people that you should not invest in Bitcoin. Not invest.
Then they will come after you with a chopper.
Yeah.
With an axe to
those guys who have invested and made money will come after you with machetes.
Yes. And they say that, good thing I did not hear from you.
In 2013, the Cypriot financial crisis set off a chain reaction and caused the price of Bitcoin to reach a historical high of $1,242 on 29th of November in 2013. It happened that there was some kind of crisis in the country of Cyprus.
Yes.
And Cyprus citizens were all so panicky They don't want their money. They don't even want their gold. They don't want anything.
And they just want Bitcoin. And
wow.
They don't even trust US dollar. They don't even trust euro.
Yeah, does that give you any confidence?
and they try something so virtuous.
And that gave them the confidence, and that sparked off a chain reaction. It drove up the prices all the way from $1 to 1,000 over dollars.
And then meanwhile, in China, Bitcoins also gained popularity as the rich and gambling-prone Chinese helped to further push up prices.
Can you imagine? 1.3 billion people helped to push something.
Nothing. And it shoots up again.
Nothing became something.
Yes. However, the Chinese government took gradual steps to systematically eliminate speculations in Bitcoins.
It's worth to say that the Chinese government up to today did not ban Bitcoin.
They did not ban, but
they tried to curb it.
They tried to curb it, introduce some so-called restrictions, some legislation.
Yes, to prevent their citizens from getting burned.
Yes. And also some of their companies start to accept Bitcoins as a payment.
Right. Baidu.
And on 14 October 2013, Baidu began accepting Bitcoins.
Wow, sounds serious.
So the Central Bank of China bans Bitcoin transactions.
They banned the transaction, but they didn't ban the Bitcoin.
Yes.
Okay.
And
that was just 2 months after Baidu accepted Bitcoin.
Yes, and then 2 months later, Baidu stopped accepting Bitcoins as a payment.
Right.
Baidu prices then started to fall gradually to the level of $300 today. Okay.
Can you imagine if you bought something at 1,200 and it became $300? How many percent is that? Something like 60, 70% more?
Actually, it's more than that.
Right. Quite bad, isn't it?
Quite bad. Actually, it comes in a folds. It's actually dropped by about 300%.
Well, if you can win 1 million %, what is losing 70 or 80%, right?
It's no problem. So it will come back again.
Yes.
You must stay positive.
Remember, Terminator, I'll be back.
I shall return. Okay. So, will Bitcoin's price rise again?
Now, Bitcoin is basically speculative. It's hard to say how irrational human behavior can be. What is your advice on whether or not to invest in Bitcoin?
Well, perhaps we should give advice from the greatest investor in the world, Warren Buffett.
Right.
He says, stay away from it.
Haha.
It's a mirage, basically, which means Bitcoin is just an illusion. The reason is simply because it has no intrinsic value. Unlike gold, it's not unlike betting at the casino.
And that is advice not from Andrew Chia or Eric.
It's from Warren Buffett because he practices value investing.
Yes. When you invest in something, it must have intrinsic value.
Okay. Right.
So he says Bitcoin has no value at all. Is that what he says?
Yes, because you are creating from nothing. Right? And you cannot sell anything. You cannot place an intrinsic value on virtues.
So there you are, guys. Our conclusion for today on our subject of Bitcoin is that stay away from it, please.
Please. As far away as possible. Right. So, alright folks. That's all the time we have for now. Thank you and hope you enjoy the show. We will be back with more business updates on ASEAN Biz and stay tuned.
Bye for now.